Hi everyone. Starting your own business in the United States and working for that business without the appropriate work authorization can be a major problem for your immigration status. Since starting my law firm, one of the questions that I've gotten asked most frequently is, can I start a business in the United States and can I work for that business? Well, the answer is that it depends. In this video, I'm going to give you the important details that you need to know about. So stick around. Hi everyone. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael Ashoori and I'm a US immigration lawyer based in Los Angeles. At my law firm, we regularly post videos to make sure you're up to date with what's going on in immigration. So if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now. So as I mentioned, if you're planning on starting a business in the United States and you're planning on working for that, it's very important that you know what types of work authorization you need so that you make sure that you're in line and that you're not breaching any immigration laws that can prejudice your status in the United States. So in this video, I'm going to give you the important details that you need to know about. To get started, it's important that we first define three important concepts. One is starting a business. What is starting a business? Well, starting a business is forming a corporation or an LLC, opening a business bank account, and those related setup tasks. That's classified as starting a business. The other concept that I want to talk about is owning a business. So owning a business is just basically having an ownership interest in a business. For example, if you're partners with somebody, they own 50% and you own 50%, then you're basically an owner of that business. Now, the third concept that I want to talk to you about is managing and operating a business. If you're going to be managing or operating a business, it involves hiring and firing, or perhaps doing some tasks for the business, managing your staff, other such tasks. That's more considered operating and managing the business. Now, it's important that we have a clear definition of each of these different concepts, because depending on what you're planning on doing, your work authorization or the need for your work authorization will differ. So let's start with number one, setting up the business. If you're just planning on setting up a business, for example, forming a corporation, forming an LLC, opening a bank account, then you do not necessarily need to have work authorization. These are tasks that you can do while you're on perhaps a visitor visa, depending on the circumstances, or it can potentially be done from outside of the United States. It's not necessarily mandatory that you have work authorization to set up a business. Now, what about owning a business? So like we talked about, concept number two, if you're just going to have ownership in a business, for example, if you are a 50% partner in a business and there's somebody else, for example, like a US citizen or a lawful permanent resident that owns the other 50%. So if you're just going to be an owner in the business and you're not going to actively manage or operate the business, then you do not need to have work authorization. Again, though, we're talking about a situation where you're not actively managing the business, you're not working for the business, you're not managing staff, you're more so considered almost like a passive investor in the business. If you're more like an owner, a passive owner, then you do not necessarily need to have work authorization for the business. Now, what about concept number three? What if you're planning on working for the business, managing the business, operating the business, managing your staff, what's traditionally classified as operating your business? Well, if you're going to operate your business, then you do need to have work authorization to work for your business. So now that we've identified those three concepts and the types of authorization that are required, depending on what you plan to do, the next step is that you need to determine what types of activities do you plan to do in the United States. Are you going to be just setting up a business? Are you going to be a passive owner of a business? Or are you going to be actively managing and operating your business? If you're going to be actively managing and operating your business, then it's important that you have the appropriate work authorization that allows you to do this. Because again, as we mentioned earlier in this video, if you operate a business or work for a business in the United States without the appropriate work authorization, this can be very harmful and consequential to your immigration status. So again, if you determine that working for your business and operating your business is what you want to do in the United States, I want to tell you a few options that will allow you to do that. The first option that I want to talk to you about is the E2 visa. The E2 visa is a special visa for investors and entrepreneurs. And the way it works is that basically you invest in a US business, so you can start a new business or you can purchase an existing business. And based on that investment, you get the authorization to manage and operate your business in the United States. Now let's talk about another option, which is the L1 visa. The L1 visa is a little bit different. The way the L1 visa works is that it's basically for a foreign company, so a company outside of the United States, to transfer a worker to work for a related company in the United States. Now, the employee that's being transferred must have worked as either a manager or an executive, or must have worked in a specialized knowledge capacity for the foreign company. In addition, the worker must be coming to the United States to work as either a manager or executive or specialized knowledge worker. Now, why do I bring this up with somebody that's interested in starting a business in the United States? Well, the L1 visa allows somebody to set up a business, a new business in the United States. So even if the business is brand new, somebody can transfer under an L1 visa to operate that business and act as a manager or an executive or in a specialized knowledge capacity for that business. So that's the L1 visa. Now, lastly, I want to talk about option number 3, which is the EB5 visa. Now, the EB5 visa is a little bit different, and it's quite similar to the E2 visa. And the way it works is that basically you invest in a US business similar to an E2 visa. But with the EB5 visa, there's a set amount that you have to invest. That amount is either $900,000 or $1.8 million, depending on where the business operates. In addition to investing the funds, your investment must also lead to the creation of 10 full-time jobs for US workers. So that's the EB5 visa. So again, those are 3 options for people that are interested in coming to the United States to work for their business. Guys, I hope you guys found this information very helpful. Again, it's very important to know, depending on what actions and activities that you're planning on doing in the United States, you need to know what is the appropriate status that you need to have to make sure that you're abiding by all the immigration rules and that you're not breaching any of the immigration rules, because again, breaching immigration rules can lead to major consequences for your immigration standing in the United States and potential future immigration goals. So it's important that you know that what you're doing is in line with the immigration laws. Again, I hope you guys found this video extremely helpful. If you know anybody that could benefit from this information, feel free to share this video with them. We're all about empowering you guys with knowledge. So the more people that can see this information, that can benefit from it, we definitely want to share it with them. If you liked this video, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions, I know this is a lot of complex information and it can get pretty confusing. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. And if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because subscribing is ultimately the best way to stay in the loop with all of the content that we're posting. As always, thank you so much for tuning into this video, and I'll see you on the next one.